Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Small Business Small Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, and I have Eagle Eye Strategies based in Louisville, Kentucky. The Small Business Small Talk episodes, the shows, the podcast is one of the funnest things I do in my entire life. It's so fulfilling for me to sit across the proverbial table, the virtual table, if you will, and sometimes the real table here in my office or on site with my guests who are 9 times out of 10, the business owner, the business decision maker of small business, that they're on a growth trajectory. And I love to hear more about how they got to doing that. Like, what got you out of normal business society, normal corporate things into on your own? What made you take that leap of faith, that risk, that like, what got you to do this? I love hearing backstories. I love to hear the story. And this one is no exception. So my guest today, I'll get to him in a second. I do want to remind you that you can go to our website, smallbusinesssmalltalk.com, and get all the information about each episode is housed there. And you can also connect with your favorite listening or watching platform. So we're on YouTube. We have a Facebook page. We also have the listening platforms like Spotify, iTunes, and so forth. So if you find your favorites, then you can subscribe, and you can also leave us reviews. Please leave me a review. If you like these, leave a review. Please share with a friend. Don't keep this a secret. Share with a friend, because here's the thing. You and your friends may be starting a business together, or you need a friend to understand what it takes to be in business, or you want other people in your, even a chamber, to know more about, hey, I'm not in this alone. We are all going through these things together. Listen to this backstory. It's amazing. So some things to consider as you're listening to these episodes. Pick one, this one, any others, is listen to it through a filter of, what can I learn from this? This person is successful in their business. Otherwise, they wouldn't be picked to be on the podcast. And so what can I learn from that? How can I apply that idea that they had to my own thing to make that growth happen? How can I overcome my challenge the way that they overcame theirs? So look at the videos, watch the show, listen to the shows with the filter of, how can I learn and apply to where I am to get me where I want to go? So leave those reviews so I will get that feedback from you as well. It also helps me to know, directionally, if there's somebody that you want to hear from, put their name out there. Let me reach out. I'll see what I can get. What I do can get them on the podcast. I'm not at the stage of this podcast, I'm sorry to say, that I've not interviewed like multi-billionaires. This is not a show that's going to interview those Fortune 500 businesses. That's not what this show is about. This is about small business that's making a big impact in the world. So with that, I do want to introduce my guest. It is Dean Wegner. He is based in Nashville, Tennessee, and his brand is called Authentically American. Y'all, I wanted so badly to be the one to interview this business owner, not because it was specifically Dean. I wanted to know how this brand came about. So they're pushing 5 years into business, which is all fantastic. But this brand, Authentically American, he has the story on the website, is to help bring manufacturing jobs back to America by selling premium, competitively priced apparel that is all made in the USA, no exceptions. He has expertise in the apparel industry, coupled with his passion for America, provided all the incentive he needed to create a brand that aims to set the universally accepted standard for premium American-made merchandise, while delivering a significant impact on U.S. job creation. We found the common thread with our customers to be their support for USA-made merchandise and American manufacturing. If you're looking for your new favorite polo, perfect tee to outfit your team, braided merchandise, go to their website, authenticallyamericanbrand.us. They also give back to charity. You can partner with them. They clearly state their mission and values right there. They have an Honest Abe guarantee. So as I'm going through their about page, they have this amazing video, this very well produced video that tells the story of what does it mean to be an American. I highly recommend you go watch and see that. But there's just so much. There's so much in here that I was like, I want to have this conversation. What? Because a couple of reasons. One, it's a very patriotic brand. And to be a patriotic brand in 2021's emotional temperature of society may or may not be a good thing. Like, it's how do you grow a patriotic business for everybody? And number one, you can't, because not everybody gives a shit. And he also mentions that, not in my verbiage, but in his own verbiage. But the other thing is, it's well defined. Like, he's done such a great job. Like, my marketing lens, my brand loving marketing lens is like screaming, yes, such a well done example of how to put this out there. He's done a very good job messaging that. And so I really wanted to be that person, because I know I have shared values. And so to have this conversation with Dean Wegner was just delightful for me. And I'm hoping he got I'm hoping he had a good time with it. I think that he did. I'm just up the road, so we'll have coffee and whenever I head to Nashville next time. But I love that he's doing all of these things. I also love that we get into different things about value systems and how the team is and the functioning and how he got. I mean, there's so much that we talk about. Please don't discount everything that we talk about here, because it's all important. And I hope that you learn a lot from Dean, like I learned a lot from Dean. So I got inspired myself to, honestly just go wave more flags and put them everywhere, to remind myself to instill that appreciation of what being an American really is. And don't get that mixed up with what the media tells you it is, but what it really means to be a patriotic American, to love the values that we have as Americans in the world. Again, not what news media tells me it is. And if you are watching on the video, you see my face. Not what they tell me it is, but what it really is. Those values that connect us together as community, when we collaborate, when we are able to have real discussions without disagree, like super battles here, like when we are able to sit down and grow together as Americans. I don't care what your background is. I honor and respect that background. However, for us as Americans to accomplish something, we need to come together with that common thread. Not all of the things that divides us, but all of the things that make us Americans. So I'm very excited to introduce you to Dean Wegner with Authentically American. So, Dean, thank you so much for being my guest on Small Business Small Talk. I have been so excited to talk to you. And I've actually put all of the listeners on hold because I got sick and you and I couldn't get together. And I was determined I wanted to be the one to have this conversation. And so thank you so much for coming on. I want to hear all about the backstory of how Dean got from where he was to Authentically American. So what's all in there?
Well, first of all, Chrissy, I think you and I both persevered. I know you had some sickness that you dealt with and overcame, and I had some scheduling conflicts, but here we are right now. So I'm glad we persevered and made it to this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So oftentimes when people say the backstory, I always like to start with what's most important to me, Christy, and I really identify that in 3 words. And to me, it's all about God, family, and country. And I lead with my Christian faith. That is absolutely what's most important to me in my life. And then followed very quickly after that is family. My wife Kelly and I, we celebrated 27 years of marriage. We
Congratulations.
have 4 amazing kids. We've got 2 daughters, 23 and 20. We have a 17-year-old son, and we also have an 11-year-old son we adopted from Ethiopia.
Oh, nice.
So family is incredibly important to us. And from a country standpoint, so I was honored, Christy, to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point and graduated from West Point in 93, went to flight school, so learned how to fly helicopters, went to the Army Special Forces Ranger School, and then served 7 years active duty and got out in 2000. And I like to highlight God, family, and country because when it comes to Authentically American, really who I am and the DNA of what I stand for and all my experiences are all woven in together to come into what Authentically American is all about. So that's why I love to start there.
That is fantastic. So I'm glad that you brought up your branches of service. First of all, thank you for your time and your service to the country. What at a young age, what got you into wanting to get what got you into West Point? Why did you want to take that route?
Yeah. Well, it really goes back to high school, Christy, and my parents were phenomenal. They really wanted me to prepare myself for what the future was going to entail. And there were really, 2 goals I had in high school. Number one, I was a hockey player and loved the game, loved the sport, and I wanted to play Division I hockey. And number two, I wanted to get an incredible education. My parents reinforced the value of education. And when the hockey coach from West Point called and said he was interested in me as a player, and I
Oh,
looked and I saw that West Point was the number 1 ranked college in America at that time, I'm like, that is the perfect blend of hockey and education coming together. And that's ultimately what led me, to attending West Point and pursuing it for 4 years. But what I really didn't understand, Christy, until I got there was the incredibly rich history. I still remember one of the posters they sent me, and the title was Much of the History We Teach was made by people we taught. And it had
oh,
pictures of Eisenhower, had pictures of Grant, had pictures of Lee, and presidents of the US who all attended West Point. And another tie-in with Authentically American is we want to be a very value-centric country, very value-centric company. And a lot of people, if they're familiar with West Point, they may have heard these 3 words: duty, honor, country. And they really mean something when you're a cadet. They really mean something when you graduate. And that's what we want our values at Authentically American, to truly mean something and not just be words on our website, not just be words on the wall in our headquarters.
so how did then do you instill those values throughout your team, your system at your company?
I will tell you, Christy, one thing that I learned from my dad is that words, I should say, actions speak much, much louder than words. And I think that is the way that we go ahead and make sure that our, values really come to life. It's not in what we say. I mean, it's more in what we do. And I think that is the most telltale sign if values really resonate with a company. Don't look at me, look at everyone else in the company, and are they really living by the spirit of those values?
I, I'm just so your brand to me, and this is one of the reasons I was so excited, is because my own brand is has a very patriotic sense to it. Eagle Eye Strategies, the red, white, and blue. It's always kind of just been instilled in me to love what America is about. Where did that start for you? Was it whenever you got to West Point, or was it like your mom and dad was like, you love the country because we love the country. Like, we are so flag waving. We love this country. It's like, where did that come from?
My parents had a high sense of patriotism, but Christy, it was really reinforced during those 4 years at West Point, and even more so those 7 years active duty, because we are a brand from an ethos standpoint, a brand that celebrates patriotism. We're a brand that believes in the American worker. And we're also a brand that honors our American heroes by intentionally donating 10% of our profits to veteran and first responder charities. But, those ethos really were reinforced during my 7 years of active duty, because I can't tell you, Christy, the incredible memories I have of the men and women I served with, the men and women that raised their right hand, that swore an oath to the Constitution to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it's that memory of the men and women I served with, and who selflessly, were willing to put their lives on the line for you and me and the rest of our great citizens here in this great nation. I mean, it was really that experience that really reinforced that patriotism in me.
So tell me about getting that business started. So you've gone from a military to business owner, or did you? Was there like a transition phase where you're like, I don't know how to do this really? So what was that transition like from military to business owner?
So right after I got out in 2000, the first company I worked with was KPMG Consulting, a Big Five consulting firm. And that was phenomenal, Christy. Loved the clients I worked with, loved the work I did, but loved my family more, and I never saw them.
Right.
It was Monday through Friday every week, and back to God, family. I mean, when I am an absent dad and not there 5 of 7 days of the week, I mean, that was not going to work long term. So prior to becoming an entrepreneur, most of my career was spent in consumer packaged goods. So I worked at Procter & Gamble on brands like Crest and Tide. Worked at Mars on brands like M&Ms and Snickers. And, that was 11 years of my professional career. And I am so thankful, Christy, because both P&G and Mars are just world-class marketing and branding companies. And
Yep.
our vision for Authentically American, we want to build this iconic American brand. So a lot of the tricks and trades and playbook are from my days at P&G and Mars. But people also say, well, Dean, why in the world did you choose to become an entrepreneur? What was it that drove you? Because I had some fairly big jobs at P&G and Mars and was also paid really well. But what I really came to a realization, Christy, is that at P&G, it's an $80 billion company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, massive, 80 billion. Mars is half the size, but it's still a $40 billion company.
It's kind of easy to get lost in that.
Yeah. And I had big roles, big jobs, was well paid, but I had this insatiable desire to know that I'm making a difference. And what I realized, even though I had a big job, had big roles, I realized that if you pull me out, the machine just keeps going.
Yep.
If I'm out, somebody else will step in, and P&G or Mars doesn't skip a beat. And I really struggled with, am I truly making a difference? And ultimately, long term, I want to leave a legacy for me, want to leave a legacy for my family. And I've thought, if I'm not making a difference, how am I going to leave a legacy? So that is one of the initial motivations that said, you know what, let me pursue being an entrepreneur.
So why choose apparel?
It's a great question, Christy, because 4 years at West Point, 7 years in the Army. I mean, the choice was made for me every single day what I was wearing. You're wearing a uniform.
Right.
So it wasn't because I was a snappy dresser, but in 2012, I entered the entrepreneurial world and bought my first business. And this was a company that had an 18-year history of producing dress uniforms for the military. And I thought, well, this is really cool, because we were producing dress uniforms for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. And the old Army dress pants I used to wear was one of our contracts. And I learned the history, Christy, around the apparel industry. So when I graduated from West Point in 1993, over 50% of the apparel in the US was made in the US. And today, Christy, it's less than 3%.
I saw that data on your site. I was like, oh, that's horrible.
I mean, it is shocking. And my initial thinking, Christy, was, well, I want to win more government contracts, because then I thought we'll create more jobs. But as I really started to understand the business, I realized that we don't actually create jobs. We're a government contractor, and it's a bidding process. So if you and I are bidding for a contract and I beat you out on the bid, Christy, your jobs in essence transfer to me.
Mm. Mm.
So it's not really job creation, it's just job transfer. And that, Christy, is when the wheels started turning. And that's when I thought, what if instead of being a government contractor, what if we built a brand? And I thought back to the days working on Crest and Tide and M&Ms. And I also thought, what if instead of what 97% of companies do and choose to produce overseas because it's cheap, what if we made the intentional choice to produce right here in the US? That's when I started thinking, think of the jobs we could create. Think of the difference we could make. And ultimately, if we're successful in building this iconic American brand with the same recognition of a Nike or Polo or Under Armour, think of the incredible legacy we could leave. So that's where it was 4 years ago with a blank sheet of paper. And I will tell you, Christy, I'm exhausted. Because,
Oh, but Dean, why? It's so
yeah,
easy to just start your own business and do
right.
that thing and make millions of dollars. Come
Oh,
on.
I'll tell you, Christy, all the things I took for granted at P&G and Mars. I mean, having data, having reports, having
Uh-huh.
manufacturing facilities, having brands, having customer service.
Salespeople.
I mean everything. So I mean, when you start with a blank sheet of paper, it's exhausting. But the reason why I'm even more energized, Christy, when you start with a blank sheet of paper, you can be so intentional about who you are and what you stand for and your values. And that's what motivates me and everyone here at Authentically American, that opportunity to really make a difference, create a legacy and really build something special.
What sort of process did you go through to get from blank sheet of paper to defined values that are out in the world, instilled in your people, making a difference as an iconic brand?
Well, Chrissy, I will tell you that is something that was not a, hey, flash of brilliance. I woke up in the middle of the night, had a dream and, wrote everything down. It was really an iterative process. And it's something that, just continues to build day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, because now we just celebrated our 4th birthday. And
Congratulations.
it's probably more condolences right now because it's been a lot of work,
No,
but it
it's
has been
congratulations. Every year it's like I've made it this far. Now
oh,
where can we go? Like the always celebrate even the
no, absolutely.
smallest of milestones.
We do. And I mean, we celebrated, we wouldn't have thought of this, but we celebrated just surviving, COVID,
Oh,
because that was not
right.
something that was part of the business plan to deal with that.
Nobody
So
had that.
no,
Everybody now has that as part of their SWOT analysis, but nobody had that beforehand.
no, not at all. And so there was no flash of brilliance. There was nothing that said overnight, here's what it is. It was, me really being intense. And my parents used to say, hey, Dean, God's given you 2 ears and 1 out mouth for a reason. You need to be listening, twice as much as you are speaking. And when you listen to people, and I talk to people like you, Christy, you and I had not met before, but there are a lot of people out there that, like you, that celebrate patriotism, that believe in the American worker, that respect and appreciate our military. And it's having those discussions and hearing that dialogue and starting to learn the apparel industry that said, you know what? It's daunting. It's going to be a lot of work, but we can do this. I mean, we can build this iconic American brand. We can truly produce amazing product. We can go ahead and create American jobs. We can go ahead and make a difference. We can go ahead and leave a legacy. It's a lot of work, but we can do this.
So back to your number one, how has your faith played into your idea of longevity in the business?
Well, I think that is something that I need a reminder each and every day of, who's most important, ultimately who the chairman of our board is. And that's why I start my day off the same way every day. And that's on my knees in prayer and a time of devotion, because I need help. I need insight and wisdom, and I've got more questions than answers. And, that's just a time to humbly pray and say, okay, this is the way I want to start the day, as a reminder of what's most important to me. And, as I'm going to bed, it doesn't take long for me to fall asleep, but, say a few prayers right before I go to bed as well. So that's ultimately how that God first, really manifests itself in my life every single day.
I love it because I do the same thing. So I get up in the morning, I fix my coffee, and then I sit and I do my devotionals, and I'll either read the gospel or have some sort of preacher devotional or whatever.
Yeah.
But in that time with God, I try to listen more than, right? I try to listen more
Mhm.
than talk to him. But my prayer always ends with, Lord, help me to be the person I need to be today, to do the things that you've set before me to do in this day. Don't let me get ahead of you in what I'm thinking is supposed to happen, but let me be partnering with you to make an impact in the world.
Well, Christy, paraphrase it a little bit, but in essence, the essence of your prayer is the same thing that I start every day because, we've got the same belief on who's in charge.
And it ain't me. And honestly, for me, I don't know about you, but for me, when I finally was like, oh, God's in control of the outcome, I just make sure I do the work every day.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I don't have to worry about whether or not the resources are going to come in because God has all the resources. Like the paradigm shift of that for me with my faith has made a huge difference in my own business
Mhm.
and how I show up with other people through the business. And that energy is just a dynamic difference. And so, a lot of times in business, unless you find that specific group who's not afraid to talk about our relationship with God and how we play out in the world as an example of that, minus all of the stuff that the media may say a Christian or a Jesus follower is, how do we just do it? All of that. And so to be able to have this going on right now, Dean, I appreciate you tremendously because, this is one of those never know whether to talk about it or not, but to have the strength to say God comes first. He is the chairman of the board. This is how it's going to function. And my family's most important. And that's why I've made some life changes. So we're going to build the business and we're going to support the country. Like, I love this for you and what that brings to the world around you because I get to experience it as part of now your radar, your sphere of influence out here on the rim.
Well, I love it, Christy, as well. And I will tell you, some people may be listening like, okay, I am just, turning it off and I'm not listening anymore. And that's okay. And I've really embraced now that what we're building, what we're pursuing does not appeal to everybody. And I've also embraced that we don't need to be all things to all people. So back to our vision, for example, to build this iconic American brand, iconic given having worked with brands like Crest and Tide and M&M's, they're all unique and different, but they're all $1 billion. So we want to build, Christy, this iconic $1 billion brand, which is daunting to think that. But also when you consider that the apparel industry is a $300 billion industry, that market share, if you do the quick math, is 1/3 of 1%.
Yeah.
So I need to find more Christies out there.
Well, that's why I wanted to have this. I want to help get you out there to find more of me. So what have been some influencers that you've had through the course of your career that's helped put all of those good ideas and those good things into you?
So what I would generally say, Christy, is I want to learn something from everyone. And when I look back, every commander that I've had in the military, every boss that I've had in the corporate world, I mean, I've learned something from everyone. And I could probably rank them top who's been the best all the way down to who's the worst. But I think when you intently say, okay, there's something I can pick up, there's something I can learn from each and every one, I think that's ultimately what's most important because I can't say there's one specific person that I model myself after, but there are nuggets of wisdom and insight that I've picked up from every leader I've interacted with and every boss I've had over my entire career.
So what has been like your best piece of advice you've ever received?
Here's one that I share now, Christy, because a lot of people say, hey, Dean, what's one piece of advice you would give? And this was one that was shared with me that, find what you love, find what you're passionate about and pursue it. Because if you are pursuing your passion, it doesn't feel like work. And I will tell you, Christy, having gone to West Point, having served in the military, I've never been one that's shy of hard work. But I will tell you, over the last 4 years, I have spent more time working than I ever have, but it doesn't feel like work. Because when you're pursuing what you love, when you're pursuing your passion, it doesn't feel like work. It's just something that is a natural extension of who you are. And when you put those guardrails in place around, God and family and making sure that I'm home every night for dinner or home every night to help with practice and coaching and doing those things. I mean, to me, somebody would look at my life and say, okay, there's no balance whatsoever. But really, it's that work-life integration for me because, I'm with my kids. I'm still helping coach. I'm still, helping with our church. I'm still volunteering, and I don't sleep much, but when I do sleep, I sleep hard, and I am just pursuing life to its fullest. So that recommendation is find what you love, find your passion.
I love it. And that's one of the common themes that I get when I do interview business owners. That is definitely a common theme. When you find what you love, you're not working, even though you're spending time working, but it doesn't feel like work. But that's okay because now I control what my day looks like
Oh,
more so than I
absolutely.
ever did before.
Mhm.
And it just makes a huge difference. So, I mean, that kind of covers the like, what advice would you give others at this stage? Um, so what has been some feedback you may have gotten? Like, you're real big into making this impact in the world. Have you gotten feedback from those that have experienced your brand and how it may have impacted them? Are you at that stage of getting that feedback from them yet?
Let me share this perspective because I've often been changed. Like, Dean, you sound very crystal clear in who you are and your brand and what your brand stands for. But I have made one big fundamental shift because when we first launched in 2017, 4 years ago, Christy, from a blank sheet of paper, I thought everyone was like you. I thought everyone was like me. I served our country, went to West
Yeah.
Point, served in the Army, and I thought everyone was going to love our brand just because we're American made.
Oh no, not everybody's like us.
And sadly, what I found out, Christy, sadly, what I found out is most people don't care. And first, I had to get over my anger issues because I'm like, how could anybody not embrace what we're doing? But,
Uh-huh.
after I really sat back and embraced it, I realized that, what? First and foremost, we're a consumer brand. And Christy, if you or one of your listeners goes to authenticallyamerican.us and makes a purchase and you receive it, and you're like, this is awful. I mean, I hate it. I mean, who cares where it's made? But what we've really done, from a position for our brand is we used to lead with American made. And now that's still important, but that's almost a secondary benefit. So we've really repositioned and said, first and foremost, we have amazing product and we deliver an amazing product experience. And I should highlight two examples for you because it also ties in, with our product, but some of the big benefits we've had from national TV exposure. So actually, let me grab a pair of our socks. So, Christy, I like to joke that socks are the new ties. I mean, nobody wears
I mean, they
socks
really
anymore.
are. There's so many great things you
Yeah,
can do with socks nowadays.
you got it. So we have been blessed with some incredible national TV coverage. And we've got another appearance coming up, and this will mark the 17 times we've been on national TV. In the
Well, I mean,
very
quite frankly,
first,
I've already looked through your sock collection and I was like, ooh, I like the one with stars.
people love those. And here's where I'll give it one more point of background on the story here, because
Yes.
some may be familiar with e-commerce, some maybe not, but Shopify is our e-commerce platform. And it's almost like a game because you can track live the number of visitors over time that are coming to your website.
Yep.
You can also track live over time the number of purchases. So from a marketing standpoint, we're always trying to say, well, what was it that drove that blip? What was it that drove that increase where people are coming to our website, who are making purchases? So the very first time I was on Fox and Friends, it was pre-COVID, so it was in studio. And I met a gentleman named Pete Hegseth. So Pete is a fellow Army veteran, and he's the host of Fox and Friends Weekend. And you may have seen these socks on our website, Christy. So these are our fun, patriotic, stars and stripes. If you
Love
can't
it.
see this and you're tuning in, one of the socks is a red and white striped. The other one is a blue and white stars. So I gave a pair to Pete. Now, Christy, fast forward, the second time I was back on Fox and Friends, I found out Pete was interviewing me. And I meet him again in studio. He's like, Dean, so great to see you again. I still have the socks you gave me. I wear them all the time. They're my favorite pair.
Favorite.
And I said, Pete, please, you've got to say this on national TV. And he did. And Christy, it was like an earthquake hit, just the spike in traffic, the spike in sales. And Pete didn't say, hey, I love them because they're American made. He said, they are so soft, so incredibly comfortable. They've got this fun, patriotic design. I just love them. That's why I wear them all the time. So just a reinforcement on, why we're leading with amazing product versus an American made. But Christy, here's what happens then, because if you read this little tag here, it will say designed in Nashville, produced in North Carolina. So these are Carolina cotton, knit in Carolina. So that's when you go to our website. That's when you start to learn the ethos and the story behind our brand.
Yep.
But if you don't have an amazing experience with our socks, it doesn't happen.
I love that you have the Honest Abe guarantee. I love that. I saw that. I was like, yes, that is just brilliant. And not, first of all, to have a guarantee is smart. It's wise. It's good consumer experience to know that you have a guarantee behind your product. But to have an Honest Abe guarantee, come on.
It was fitting with our brand. And what we realized, Christy, because that was something we added about 2 years ago. If you had purchased something from us and it was the wrong size, it didn't fit right, you didn't like it, it didn't matter, and you said, hey, can I get exchange, you get a refund? We'd be like, absolutely. But we never took credit for it. So now you saw it on our website. We had not talked about it before, but you saw the Honest Abe guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And we now say, okay, we stand behind it. We put it out there in public for everybody to see because, back to our ethos and believing in the American worker. When you have amazing product, when you believe in the American worker, you can have a strong guarantee like our Honest Abe guarantee.
So one last question. Well, actually, not a last question. I'm going to probably pack two or three in here real quick. Um, what is your team like? Like, how does setting this really solid culture, this ethos, this brand, this iconic, here's what we stand for feeling, what is it like for them when they walk in the door? Like, what's a normal day feel like for them?
Well, I wish you would say it was all rainbows and sunshine, but that would not be painting an accurate picture. Some days, like after we just had a national TV appearance and we have, thousands of new customers, we have this huge brand awareness. We're all feeling like we're walking on springs on our feet, and then it's exciting. But then we also realize, hey, we got all this brand exposure, but now there's thousands of orders. So now it's like, okay, there's a lot of work. So some days, we're riding an incredible high, and other days, like, okay, our system is broken, or we didn't do something right on our integration. So then it's a lot of work. It's a lot of trial and tribulation. So, we're not always riding a high, but there are some days that, it just feels so great to be authentically American. It feels so great. And then there's other days like, oh my goodness, it is just reality. It's a lot of work. But it's a mix of those days. But by and large, we continue to grow. Our brand continues to expand. We have more and more customers, more and more clients who are ordering from us. So, it just keeps going up and up and up. So it's been an incredible journey. But reality, Christy, it's been a lot of work.
Yeah, it is to build anything from scratch and to have the trajectory of where you want to go. It's definitely going to take a lot of work over a long period of time to get there. So this will be my last question because it's a great lead in from the previous one. What does success mean to you?
So that really ties, Christy, to the heart of our mission. And that's our passion for creating American jobs. And the number one word we're all about right now is growth. And, we want to keep growing. We want to keep serving more customers. We want to keep, serving more businesses and charities because we have a client side of our business. But every new customer, every new client, every new business, every new charity that we work with means we're creating more jobs. we're delivering an amazing product experience. And that's what's ultimately most important, is continue on that journey, because, the more products we sell, the higher our revenue means, the more American jobs that we're creating.
Awesome. Well, Dean, thank you so much for your time to be a guest on Small Business Small Talk. I very much appreciate you and all that you're about. And thank you for so much for sharing your passion with the rest of the world through Authentically American.
Well, Christy, thank you. And again, the way we started, we both persevered to get here, and I'm so glad we did. This was a delightful discussion.
Same. Thanks. Okay. If you don't feel like going out and waving a flag at this point and singing God Bless America, I'm not sure what happened to you on this episode. To have such a story of not only just going out and creating a product, but having something where you stand for it, the value system that's instilled throughout. Then you're taking a stand on, this is what not only are we about, but this is how we're doing it. No exceptions. It's all US made. If the customer's not happy with it, we have an Honest Abe guarantee. This was, and I didn't bring it up in the intro because, well, maybe it did, but this Honest Abe guarantee, it's not just the fact that they have a guarantee about it, but they're putting Honest Abe on it. Like, that's a big deal. Like, I automatically feel like I know that they are going to follow through and be trustworthy about it. Like, the integrity level, that kind of a guarantee makes me feel like I can trust this company to treat me well as a consumer. And I would be buying more. And yeah, if you honestly haven't checked out their sock collection, it's pretty nice. So the other thing I loved about this whole conversation with him is that he's just so well defined. It's clear, it's concise. When you can work your way towards that as a business owner or even a salesperson, think about how you are presenting yourself out in the world. If it's if your message is muddled, I know mine has been over the years. Mine's not near as concise as Dean's is. I know I need to work better at that. Like, I have too many papers and not enough blank. I need to focus. I think we all do. And the fact that Dean has worked diligently to get that uber defined, it's easy for the rest of us to rally around that same thing. And I just admire him for that. Again, go check out his website, authenticallyamericanbrand.us. Check out their story, the About Us page, check out the story. And I love that his advice follows a lot of other people's that I've had on this show, of find the thing you love and the money will follow. You won't have to work another day in your life because you won't consider it work. That is no longer a 4-letter word for you because you love what you do so much. And it's the best piece of advice really to keep in front of you as a business owner, to check yourself. Do you still love what you do? And if the answer is yes, even in your most frustrating days, then keep going. Keep going. We're all going to have ups and downs. There's always trials and tribulations. There's always trial and error. Those are the best mentors, is trial and error. If you don't, you won't know till you try. So a lot of things that we go through, but what is the first and foremost for you? Get that defined. His love of God, family, and country really comes through, not just in this interview, it comes through his whole company and brand. Like, you can tell, and it feels different. It matters. Like, significance is in this brand. And I am really excited to see the growth that's going to happen for him. I know he is successful now, and I can't wait to see what happens in his next stage of success. My favorite thing about the video on his website is that he actually says, and I will leave you with this on this particular episode, is be the America you want to see. Be the America you want to see. Lead by example. Lead by example. So, with that, I have been your host, Christy Smallwood, on this episode of Small Business Small Talk with Dean Wegner of Authentically American brand. I appreciate your time today as well as a listener or a watcher, and I hope that you join us again. Remember to go subscribe to your favorite channels. That way you get notified and hit the little bells and notifications. So when new episodes come out, you get notified. That way you don't miss one. And if you happen to miss one, you need to go back, go to smallbusinesssmalltalk.com and you can catch all the episodes there. So with that, thank you again. I've been your host, Christy Smallwood, and it's always my pleasure to be able to bring these interviews to you so that you know you're not in business alone.